Hello, Landings homeowners. My name is John Rittenhouse, and I'm the chairman of the Body Corporate Board of Directors. This is the first of a number of webcasts that we plan to make to homeowners going forward. I'd like to start by providing you with an update on some key accomplishments that we have made over the last several years. As you are aware, in 2014, a group of homeowners created what we call an owners consortium, raised enough money to buy the assets of the former developer from the receiver. I'm going to address some questions related to the OC shortly. However, in the interim, as a result of this critical achievement, we own all the assets of the resort ourselves and are therefore now responsible for our own destiny. Considerable work has been undertaken to implement proper financial controls over the last couple of years. This has resulted in us receiving clean, audited financial statements for calendar year 2015 for the first time ever, and with minimal comments in the management letter. We expect this to be repeated for calendar year 2016, with the final audited statements expected shortly and in good time for the annual meeting in October. There have been extensive and much needed capital reinvestment across the property in 2015 and 2016 that continue into 2017. The most obvious items are always the most immediately visible ones: refurbished lobby, the improved landscaping, and the completion of the concrete facing boards and pathway all around the marina, which was a joint owners consortium and body corporate effort. However, there are many other critical improvements that are much less visible. For example, the certification of the electrics in all buildings, the expansion of the CCTV camera system, roof repairs in many of the buildings, HVAC compressor replacement, and upgrades and repairs to the generators that ensure a continuous supply of electricity during Moosilauke outages. This September, we will be installing a water filtration system that was omitted from the original design. All told, there's been more than $900,000 reinvested into the property over the past 3 years, excluding refurbishment of rental pool units, which are covered separately by that entity. So now I'd like to address some specific questions that have been raised by the homeowners. The first question is, what is the Owners Consortium and why was it formed? So the Owners Consortium, or the OC, is a group of 36 homeowners who invested enough money in shares of the Owners Consortium to enable it to buy the assets of the former developer from the then receiver. The purchase was intended to rescue the assets from another developer who had intentions for the landings that would have had a materially negative impact on the value of all of our investments. The assets purchased from the receiver excluded all completed and sold residential units and common areas, but included all other parts of the property, as well as the contents of all of the containers that were scattered around the property. Thus, the purchased assets included the service building, the beachfront restaurant, and all non-residential parts of the pavilion building. So next question, can the Owners Consortium make a unilateral changes to the future building plans of the resort? The answer to that is no, they cannot. Any changes to the plans for future buildings, as described in the condo deck, require the approval of the body corporate, not the board of the body corporate, but the homeowners themselves. And depending upon what the OC wants to do, the approval level is either 75% or 100%. Next question, why did the board of the body corporate enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Owners Consortium? So in 2014, the then board of the body corporate entered into this MOU with the Owners Consortium. At the time of the MOU, the BC board approached the Owners Consortium board and asked that they gift the commercial units to the body corporate. That is, all homeowners at no charge. The OC could have sold these assets, including the landing's restaurants, and have them managed by a third party, or lease them back to the landings at a sizable rent. However, in the interest of all homeowners, the Owners Consortium agreed to donate the assets, which, by the way, an independent evaluator put a value of $5 million on. So the MOU formed the legal basis for this transaction, an outcome that was viewed very positively by homeowners at the time and remains so today. Homeowners are in full control of the landing's destiny Next question. Some homeowners feel that the signing of the MOU was beyond the powers of the board. We have been asked why this did not come before all homeowners for a vote and if this was legal. So it's important to remember where we were at the time the MOU was signed in October 2014. Ollie had been murdered just 6 months before. The board had been working to keep the resort operating under these difficult times, to hire replacement personnel, and to ensure proper financial controls were in place. Simultaneously, they were continuing Ollie's efforts to fully fund the owners' consortium in order to buy the assets from the receiver. Extensive legal advice was taken at the time and no issues were raised. More recently, to respond to specific homeowner inquiries on this matter, the board sought a legal opinion from Peter Foster, QC, on this point. He responded that the MOU was signed by the board of directors on behalf of the body corporate, and as such, the body corporate is bound by the terms of it. Provisions in the bylaws of the condominium declaration provide that the functions of the body corporate will, subject to restrictions and directions given at the annual general meeting, will be exercised by the board of directors. Section 14C of the Condominium Act provides that unit owners are bound by the agreements and decisions made by the body corporate in the exercise of its functions. The legal counsel is therefore of the view that the MOU is binding on the body corporate, was not beyond the powers of the board to sign, and is legally enforceable. Next question is, in accepting the donation of the commercial units, the board of the body corporate took on the cumulative trading debts of that entity since 2008. Was this legal? So legal counsel has advised us, the board of the BC, that in the management of the condominium, as in any other business, debt is possible and often incurred. This can occur in several forms: unanticipated costs, levies from external sources, and liabilities to users of the condominium. This is precisely why the condominium declaration provides for the body corporate to establish funds to discharge such obligations. In an ideal world, we'd have liked to take on the commercial units and write off any debts that they've had and start fresh. Unfortunately, these trading debts had been funded by both the rental pool and the homeowners' accounts, and were assets on the balance sheets of those two entities. And of course, the rental pool and the homeowners are owned by the homeowners. We therefore had to maintain the commercial units as an operating entity that could repay those debts. Next question, is it legitimate for the body corporate to levy an assessment on owners to pay off the deficit? So legal counsel has told us that the condo dec specifically provides for the body corporate to levy a charge in response to a specific need for funds. The body corporate is expected to assess the amounts required to attend to financial shortfalls in meeting common expenses and debt obligations, and levy this amount on unit owners in accordance with their unit entitlement. Next question. I have been told that the commercial operation should be owned and operated by the rental pool only, and should not be for the benefit of all homeowners, although all homeowners should own the physical assets. Is that correct? So legal counsel has advised us on this and says that the commercial units are owned and controlled by the body corporate, and as such should only be operated for the benefit of all members of the body corporate, not for a subset of owners such as the rental pool only. Next question, why has the 11-member body corporate board been reduced to a 7-member board? So I need to go back to 2012, and during that time, a number of homeowners successfully petitioned the High Court of St. Lucia to take control of the board of the body corporate from the former developer. The court set the number of directors at that time at 11. Moving forward to 2014, the Memorandum of Understanding included a provision that the board would exert reasonable efforts to reduce the size of the board from 11 to 7. The number of the body corporate board has not been reduced. Instead, the body corporate undertook to meet this reasonable effort requirement through the creation of LBC Holdings, Inc., and create a 7-member board in that entity. More recently, the July meeting of the LBC Holdings Board, it was agreed to waive the seven director provision in the MOU and to allow the number of directors in LBC Holdings to be increased to 11. So therefore, in the future, any director of the body corporate will also be a director of LBC Holdings for their year in office. Next question, why can't the commercial operations run at a profit? So in fact, the commercial operations do run at a profit, a gross profit, after accounting for direct expenses of each particular area, such as the food and beverage and payroll. What has caused them to run at a loss is that they have been overburdened with the resort's common expenses. For example, in 2016, the commercial operations had a gross profit of $860,000, but were charged $754,000 as their share of total cost of running accounting, HR, IT, security and property operations, and maintenance. This equates to $63,000 a month, an amount that is well in excess of a reasonable market-based rent charge that would have to be paid on these should the activities be outsourced. In other words, if a third party was to take over this, they'd have to pay $63,000 a month, which is not reasonable, well in excess of market. After the recently undertaken cost allocation analysis and the implementation of that new methodology, we expect that the commercial operations to make a profit, which over time will reduce the deficit on their balance sheet, and which can ultimately be used to reduce HOA dues. The next question is, what is being done about the wire fraud that we heard about last year? Why don't we just sue and get it over with? That's a good question. The board has taken some advice in the U.S. as to whether we have a valid case with respect to the wire fraud. We've been told that we do, in fact, have a strong case and that litigation would likely result in a favorable outcome for us. However, we've also evaluated the matter from a pragmatic perspective. So Classic Vacations, the operator involved in the wire fraud, is a division of Expedia. Combined, Classic Vacations and Expedia, they have produced over $1 million in sales in each of the last 2 years and are on target to do more than that in 2017. So last year, when the wire fraud was first discovered, Classic Vacations stopped selling the landings for 4 months out of concern that we would launch a legal action against them. If we litigate now, they will undoubtedly stop selling us again, possibly permanently, and Expedia may do the same as well. We have assessed the marketplace and have determined there are no other vendors that could reasonably replace this volume of revenue quickly, if at all. We've therefore decided to work with Classic Vacations to identify sources of cost savings that can make up the $300,000 in lost revenue. For example, foregone trade show fees, advertising fees, and also by having them increase sales for the landings and increase our revenues. Some of these items may be difficult to quantify, but the board believes this is a better strategy than launching a prolonged litigation with sizable legal fees and with a significant potential negative revenue impact for the landings. So that's all the questions I have, and I appreciate everyone sending them. We'll have another opportunity to talk at the upcoming annual meeting in October. I hope as many people as possible show up or call in for the meeting. And I look forward to talking about the future of the landings with you all at that time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.